The rain hit the spaceport like falling needles, cold and sharp. Jace stood there with his shoulders low, his boots soaked and his pockets empty. He had nothing left, not money, not family, not even a place to sleep. The city lights above were red and strange, blinking like eyes that didn't care. He had come to this alien planet hoping for a fresh start, but no one wanted him. Every alien landlord said the same thing. No credits, no home. Some laughed, others just closed the door in his face. But he kept walking, even when his legs hurt and his jacket ripped at the seams. At the edge of the city, where the clean roads turned to rusted metal and moss-covered walls, he found a strange old building. It looked broken, just like him. Its windows were cracked, and vines grew from its roof, but the lights inside were still on. He walked up the steps slowly and knocked on the door. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the door creaked open, not fully, just enough to show a tall shadow standing inside. She was an alien woman, tall with blue glowing eyes and long dark hair that moved like it was floating underwater. Her skin was pale silver, smooth like stone, but her face showed no emotion. She didn't ask his name or why he was standing in the rain. Instead, she asked one strange question. "Do you have honor?" Jace blinked, confused. I don't know what that means here," he said. She tilted her head, her eyes searching him like she was reading something inside his mind. "You may stay," she said finally, "but you must follow my rules." Jace didn't ask questions. He was too tired, too cold, and too desperate to care. She showed him to a small room upstairs, clean but bare. There was a bed, a small table, and a window that showed the storm outside. Before leaving, she pointed to the hallway. "There is one rule," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "Never open the last door at the end of the hall." Jace nodded, his eyes already closing. She left, and he fell into sleep like a stone falling into water. But in the middle of the night, something woke him. At first, it was soft, like wind whispering, then clearer, like someone calling his name, Jace. He sat up, heart racing. The sound was coming from the hallway, from the last door, the one he was told not to open. He walked to his door and opened it just a crack. The hallway was dark, except for a faint blue glow leaking from the far end. The locked door was humming, like it was breathing. He took one step forward, but then stopped. The voice called again, this time louder. "Jace, help me." It was a woman's voice, soft and sad, but also familiar, too familiar. He shut his door quickly and leaned against it, breathing hard. Was he dreaming? Or had the house just whispered to him? The next morning, he tried to forget. He cleaned the kitchen, fixed a broken pipe in the bathroom, and swept the dusty floor. The landlady said nothing, but watched him closely. Sometimes he felt her eyes. Even when she wasn't in the room, she moved quietly, always graceful, like a shadow with purpose. That night, as he tried to sleep again, he heard the voice once more. Only this time, it wasn't just calling, it was crying. "Jace, why did you leave me?" He pressed his hands to his ears, trying to block it out. But the sound wasn't coming from outside, it was inside his head. Like a memory that wasn't his, like a ghost that remembered him, even if he didn't remember it. The next day, he asked her, carefully, "What's behind that door?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at him with something almost like pain in her eyes. "You said you had honor," she whispered. "Don't lose it now." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him more confused than ever. Jace sat on the floor of his small room that night, staring at the hallway. That door was calling him again, louder than before. But now, it wasn't just the voice that scared him. It was the feeling deep in his chest, the feeling that he had been here before, the feeling that this was not the first time he had opened that door, and that whatever waited behind it already knew him. The sun never really rose on this planet, just shifted from deep purple to a lighter shade of blue. Jace sat by the window of his small room, staring at the dull light, wondering what time even meant here. He hadn't heard the voice again since last night. But the memory stayed. He could still feel the sadness in that voice, like it had touched something inside him, something that didn't belong to this life. The landlady. Varela, that's the name he found carved on a tiny plaque near the front. Dor didn't speak much, but every time she passed by him, her eyes lingered too long. It wasn't anger or suspicion, it was something else. Almost like guilt. She didn't eat, or at least not when he could see her. She never left the building, never seemed tired. She just moved through the house like a ghost, keeping things in place. Once, when he was fixing a broken vent, she stood silently behind him for 10 whole minutes, just watching. When he turned around, she simply said, "You're good with your hands." Then walked away. Jace didn't know what to make of it. He didn't know what to make of this whole place. Everything in the building looked old, but well maintained. There were alien patterns on the walls that looked like writing, and strange. Glowing orbs that floated silently in the corners. None of it made sense, and yet it all felt oddly familiar. That night, he had a strange dream. He was standing in a field of glowing grass. The stars were red above him, and someone was holding his hand. He couldn't see their face, but the hand felt warm, gentle. He turned to look, but before he could, fire exploded across the sky, and the dream vanished. He woke up sweating, the room cold as ice. He went to the sink to splash water on his face. As he looked in the mirror, something caught his eye. There was a small scar on his temple, one he didn't remember having when he touched it. He saw a flash Varela's face, smiling, younger, and reaching for him. Then it was gone. The next day, he decided to explore more of the house. There were rooms that seemed unused, covered in dust, filled with furniture that didn't match the rest of the building. In one small storage closet, behind a stack of broken chairs, he found something that stopped his heart, a framed photo, half burned, showing Varela standing beside a human man. The man looked exactly like him. Same eyes, same face, even the same tired smile. But the picture was old. The colors faded. The edges curled with time. On the back, someone had written in shaky handwriting, "Cycle 4, don't forget." He stared at those words, trying to make sense of them. What cycle? What was he supposed to remember? Was this man his ancestor? Or was something even stranger going on? When he brought the photo to Varela, she looked at it in silence. Then she turned away and whispered, "That was a long time ago. You knew him?" Jace asked, his voice shaking. "I still do," she said. Then walked into her room and closed the door. Jace didn't sleep that night. He sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the hallway. The locked door at the end of the hall was quiet now. No whispers, no light, but somehow that made it worse, like it was waiting for him. Just as he was waiting for answers, around 3 in the morning, he heard footsteps. He peeked out and saw Varela walking slowly down the hallway. She stopped in front of the locked door and placed her hand on it. A soft blue glow came from under her fingers, like the door was breathing with her. She didn't speak, but Jace could feel her pain. Then she whispered something he could barely hear. "Please." "Not again." He stepped back quietly into his room, heart pounding. Whatever was behind that door wasn't just dangerous, it was personal, and somehow he was a part of it. The next morning, he found something odd on his bed, an old, worn book, with pages yellowed and the edges frayed. It wasn't there the night before. He opened it slowly and saw writing in 2 languages, one in English and the other in strange alien symbols. Some pages were blank, some were torn, but one sentence stood out, written in large bold letters. "She will remember, but will I?" His hands trembled as he read it again. The writing looked like his own, but older, shakier. He didn't know what was real anymore. All he knew was that this wasn't just a place to stay. This was a place with a history, his history. And someone, maybe even himself, had left him a warning. The door at the end of the hallway was no longer just a door. To Jace, it felt alive now, like it watched him every time he passed by. It no longer whispered, but it didn't have to. The silence itself had weight, and the book, his book, maybe kept drawing him back. He read the same line again each night, hoping for more meaning. She will remember, but will I? One afternoon, while dusting the shelves in the common room, he found something odd. A small box hidden behind old books, sealed with a strange metal clasp. It didn't look like it belonged to this world, or any world he knew, when he opened. There was a device inside, smooth and black, glowing faintly. As soon as he touched it, he heard the voice again. Not from the hallway, but from inside his mind. "Jace," it whispered, "you're almost back." He dropped the device and stepped back, heart racing. Varela appeared in the doorway, as if summoned by the sound. Her eyes went straight to the device. Then to him. "You opened it," she said softly. "It called me," he replied, voice shaking. "I didn't mean to." She picked up the device carefully, her hands shaking for the first time. "You shouldn't be remembering yet," she said, more to herself than to him. That night, Jace couldn't sleep again. The dream came back, this time clearer. He saw himself older, wearing armor, standing in the same hallway. Varela stood beside him, but she looked afraid. He reached for the locked door, but she begged him not to open it. He didn't listen. The door opened, and everything turned to fire. He woke up gasping, the taste of smoke still in his mouth. There were no alarms, no fire, just silence. But the memory didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a moment from his past, only not this life. Maybe another. He started asking questions the next day. To the neighbors, to the vendors on the street, to anyone who had been near the building. Most ignored him, but one old alien woman stopped and looked him in the eyes. "She chose you again," the woman whispered. "She always chooses you." "What do you mean?" Jace asked, stepping closer. "You must be the 5th. Or maybe the 6th, she said, then hurried away. He stood there frozen, the words echoing in his mind. When he returned home, the lights flickered strangely. He walked into the hallway and saw something new, marks on the wall near the locked door, small scratches like someone had clawed at it, trying to open it from the inside. He knelt down and touched the grooves. They were old, but not ancient, and they were made by human fingers. That night, the voice returned louder than ever. "Jace, you left me. Don't leave again." He covered his ears, but it was useless. The sound wasn't around him, it was inside. He felt dizzy, like the room was spinning. Then everything went dark. He opened his eyes to find himself standing in the hallway. He didn't remember walking. There, the locked door was right in front of him, and it was glowing soft blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. He reached for it slowly, unsure why he was moving. Before his fingers touched the handle, a hand grabbed his wrist. Varela stood behind him, her eyes wide with fear. "Not yet," she whispered. "If you open it now, everything resets. Tell me the truth." Jace said, his voice rough. "What is behind this door? What am I?" She looked at him for a long moment, then let go of his wrist. "Something you loved," she said, "something you lost." Then she turned and walked away, her shoulders heavy with something older than time. Jace stood there alone. The door, still glowing. He didn't open it, not yet, but deep down, he knew it was only a matter of time. The voice would keep calling, the dreams would return, and he would remember whether he wanted to or not. Something changed in the air, Jace felt. At the moment he woke up, the house was too quiet, the hallway too cold. The glow from the locked door had stopped, but the feeling didn't leave. It was like the whole building was holding its breath. At breakfast, Varela sat across from him, not eating, just watching. She had a cup in her hands, but it didn't steam. Jace didn't speak, and neither did she. The silence between them had weight, like old memories pressing down after she left the room. He stepped outside for the first time in days. The alien sun still hung low, casting long shadows. He walked the street, trying to clear his mind, but as he passed the nearby market, something strange happened. A group of aliens stopped talking and stared at him, not with hate or fear, but recognition. An older vendor, covered in thick green scales, pointed at him and muttered, "It's him again." Jay stopped, confused. You know me? The vendor didn't answer, but a young alien woman nearby did. She chose you again, she said. She always chooses the same face. What does that mean? Jace asked, stepping closer, but she backed away and said nothing more. He returned to the house with questions burning inside him, but Varela wasn't there. He checked the hall, the kitchen, even knocked on her door. No answer. The whole place felt abandoned, like it had been waiting for something to begin. Later that night, as he sat in the common room flipping through the old book, he found a torn page hidden behind the last one. It had a rough sketch of the house, marked with strange lines, arrows pointing beneath the floor. He followed the lines to a loose board under his bed. With effort, he pried it up and found a hidden metal hatch, covered in dust. He hesitated, then opened it and climbed down into the darkness. The tunnel below was narrow and cold, lit only by the small device he brought with him. The walls were made of old stone and alien metal fused together. As he moved deeper, the air began to feel heavier, like it remembered pain. At the end of the tunnel, he found a door. This one was not locked. Inside was a small hidden lab, untouched for years. A console sat in the center, surrounded by strange machines, some from Earth, others unknown. He touched a panel, and a hologram flickered to life. He froze when he saw the figure standing in the image. It was him, older, eyes full of regret, speaking to someone off-screen. "If he returns," the hologram said, "tell him nothing, or we both die." Image changed, and now Varela stood beside him, younger, holding his hand. "We can try again," she said. "Maybe this time it will work." Jay stared at the recording, heart pounding. Was that really him? How many times had this happened? And why did he keep coming back? He heard footsteps behind him, turned quickly, and saw Varela standing in the tunnel. She looked different, older somehow, tired in a way that went beyond age. "You weren't supposed to find this," she said quietly. "You lied to me," Jay said. "Why?" "Because you asked me to," she answered. "I don't believe you," he said, voice rising. She looked at him with sorrow in her eyes. "You wanted to forget, every time," she whispered, "because remembering hurts more than dying." He didn't know what to say. The truth was too large to hold in his hands. He wasn't just a lost traveler. He was part of something older, something broken, something repeating, and Varela wasn't just a landlady. She was the key to everything, his guide, his jailer, maybe even his wife. The machines around him began to hum, sensing his presence. Varela stepped forward, her voice softer now. "If you open the door upstairs, the cycle begins again. What if I don't?" He asked. "Then it ends, but so do we." Jace looked at her, not sure what to feel. Anger, confusion, love all fighting in his chest. He stepped past her, climbing back toward the hallway. He needed time, needed air, needed to think, but the voice behind the door was already calling again. And this time, it was not alone. Asterisk. The rain returned the next day, but Jace didn't feel it. He sat at the edge of his bed, the hidden book in one hand and the small glowing device in the other. The house was silent, yet heavy, like it was waiting. He hadn't spoken to Varela since the tunnel. He didn't know how every word she'd said still echoed in his mind. "You asked to forget. You wanted to die clean." He didn't believe it, but part of him feared it was true. If he had chosen to erase his memories before, what kind of pain was he running from? Jace stood and walked through the hallway slowly. Each door he passed felt older than before. The marks on the wall near the last door seemed deeper now, like they had grown on their own. He turned away from it and returned to the common room. Searching for answers, that's when he noticed something strange. A painting on the wall, one he'd never really looked at. It showed a tall alien woman and a man in human military uniform standing together on a hill. Both were smiling. The man was him, without question. And the woman Varela, younger and glowing, her hand gently resting on his shoulder. He took the painting off the wall and found a message behind the frame. Written in sharp black ink, Cycle 7. If you made it this far, maybe you're strong. Enough to remember. His chest tightened. Cycle 7. How many times had he lived and died in this house? Suddenly, the book he kept close began to vibrate softly. He opened it, and a hidden page near the back peeled loose, revealing a small chip embedded in the cover. Without thinking, he pressed it against the device in his hand. A soft click, then light filled the room as a projection appeared. Another version of himself, older, tired, eyes darker, stood in front of him. "Jace," the voice said, "if you're seeing this, I failed again. You need to know the truth now before the door opens." He leaned forward, heart pounding. "I was a researcher on Earth, studying memory loops and emotional transfers. I met Varela during a peace exchange. We fell in love. We tried to build a life. But I kept dying or forgetting or something worse. Each time I came back, I remembered less, but she remembered everything. We thought this house could hold the cycle, protect the soul until it was ready. We were wrong." The image flickered and glitched, but Jace caught the last part. "If you break the machine, the loop ends, but the house dies. If you open the door before remembering, you'll lose yourself again." Then it vanished. Jace sat back, breathing hard. This wasn't just a trap, it was a test. One he had failed many times, but now, maybe, he had a chance that night. Varela returned to the common room without a word. She stood near him, not sitting, her hands folded tightly. "You found the rest," she said quietly. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes shone with sadness and something else, hope. "Maybe I didn't want you to remember like this," she said, "but I didn't know how else. To protect you." Jace looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just some mysterious alien anymore. She was the only person in this entire world who had stayed with him through every life. Even when he forgot her, she waited. "What's behind the door?" he asked again, his voice steady now. Varela turned her gaze to the hallway. "It's you," she whispered. "Every version of you, every failure, every start, frozen in time. I kept them," she added, her voice cracking. "I couldn't let them die." He felt cold all over. "Then why do I keep coming back?" "Because you promised you would," she said. "And every version of you kept that promise, even if they didn't know why." Jay stood, his legs heavy, his heart burning. "I need to see it." Varela said nothing, only stepped aside. As he walked toward the end of the hallway, the door began to glow again, not blue this time, but gold, warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. He didn't touch it yet. His hand hovered just inches away. From behind, Varela whispered, "If you remember who you were before you open it, the choice will be yours this time." The door trembled gently, and deep within, the voices began to rise again, not just one, but many, all of them his, all of them waiting. Jace didn't open the door. Not yet. He stood there, feeling the heat from it, the hum under his fingers like the pulse of a living thing. The voices behind it whispered like 1,000 memories trapped in wind. Some called his name gently, others cried, and a few screamed. It wasn't just a door. It was a prison, a mirror, a grave. He stepped back, his chest tight. He needed to breathe. The hallway seemed to stretch as he walked away from the door, the walls pulsing faintly, like the house itself was holding onto him. In the common room, Varela was waiting, standing perfectly still. She said nothing, but he saw the question in her eyes. He shook his head. "I couldn't," he said. "Not yet." She nodded once, like she had expected that answer. That night, he sat by the window, watching the quiet alien city outside. Something felt different now, like time was shifting, like the end was near. A soft knock came at the front door. Jace looked at Varela, surprised. They never had visitors. Varela opened the door slowly, and a tall alien man stood there, dressed in gray robes, his eyes glowing red. The man stared at Jace, then spoke. In a deep voice, "The cycle is trembling," he said. The gatekeeper is losing control. Varela stepped in front of Jace protectively. He is not ready, she said. The man tilted his head. He must be. Jace stepped forward, confused and angry. Who are you? He asked. The man looked at him with a strange mix of pity and respect. I am a watcher, he said. I have seen all your lives. You're not supposed to interfere, Varela said sharply. This time is different, the watcher replied. He is closer than ever before. The watcher placed something small on the table, a silver key. You'll need this when the time comes. Then he turned and walked away into the dark street. Jace stared at the key, his hands shaking. What is it for? He asked. Varela didn't answer right away. It opens the truth, she finally said. The next morning, Jace opened a door in the house that had always been locked before. Not the door at the end of the hallway, but a forgotten room near the stairs. Inside, dust floated like snow. He found a wall full of drawings and notes, all in his handwriting. One showed the door. Another showed a machine shaped like a coffin. In one corner, a sentence repeated over and over again. I am not ready. I am not ready. I am not ready. But the last line, written in darker ink, said, Now I am. Behind the wall was another hatch. He followed it into a narrow space. Beneath the house, deeper than the tunnel he had found before, there, in the center of a glowing platform, was the machine from the drawings. It was shaped like a pod, covered in symbols, pulsing softly with gold and blue light, and inside it, lying perfectly still, was himself, another version of him, sleeping, or frozen, or dead, his breath caught in his throat. This was not a memory, not a dream. This was real. The face inside the pod was his older, tired, with a scar across the temple. The same scar he now felt on his own skin. Varela appeared behind him, quiet. As always, you were the first to create the loop, she said softly. You built this to hold your soul, to give yourself a chance to return, to try again. But it became more than a second chance, she whispered. It became a cage. Jace turned to her, anger and sadness fighting in his chest. Why didn't you stop me? I loved you too much, she said. I still do. The machine began to glow brighter as he stepped closer. He placed a hand on the glass, and for a moment, he felt her rush, memories, voices, images, different lives, different mistakes, all flooding back. But this time, he didn't turn away. He let it in. He remembered. The pod opened slowly with a hiss of light. The other version of him inside turned to ash. And Jace fell to his knees, overwhelmed but awake. Fully awake for the first time in 1,000 years. Varela knelt beside him, her voice shaking. You broke the loop. Jace looked at her, tears in his eyes. Not yet, he said. There's still one door left. And this time, he would open it with his whole self, not just the memory of who he was, but the choice of who he wanted to be. The house was no longer quiet, it breathed. The walls shimmered faintly, as if the memories trapped inside were waking up. Jace stood at the end of the hallway, the silver key tight in his hand. The locked door in front of him was glowing gold. The same color as the truth inside him now. It didn't whisper this time. It waited. Varela stood behind him, silent, watching. She had watched him do this many times, but this time was different. This time, he remembered everything. The fire, the pain, the promise, the decision to trap his soul in the machine, the hope that love could survive through time, and the failure that followed again and again. He placed the key into the lock, and it fit perfectly. A soft click echoed through the hallway. The door trembled, then opened with a long sigh. The room beyond was filled with light, blinding at first, then soft and warm. Jace stepped inside slowly, his heart calm but heavy. It was a room of mirrors. Each wall reflected not just his face, but his lives, versions of him standing, kneeling, smiling, crying. All the Jaces who had walked this path before, each one paused in a loop, frozen in their moment of failure or fear. And in the center, there was one last pod, empty, waiting. Jace walked past the mirrors, touching each one gently, He saw the anger in some faces, the confusion in others. But one thing connected them all: regret. He stopped in front of the empty pod. A message floated above it in glowing alien letters, and below, in English, "The final chance is not to remember, but to choose." Varela entered behind him, the golden light dancing across her silver skin. "This is where you always choose to start over," she said quietly. "You step into the pod. Erase everything and try again." Jace turned to her, his eyes full of sorrow and strength. "Not this time," he said. "I don't want to forget you again." She stepped closer, eyes shining. "And if you stay, you have to live with all of it. All the pain, all the failure, all the versions of yourself you tried to leave behind." "I know," he said, "but I also remember why I kept coming back." He took her hand gently. "I loved you. You loved me. And we both suffered for it." She squeezed his hand softly. "If you step out of the loop, the house will vanish. The memories, the echoes, everything we built gone." Jace looked around at the frozen versions of himself, then back at the woman who had waited through lifetimes. "I don't need a house to remember," he said. "I just need you." A low rumble filled the room. The mirrors began to crack one by one, not violently, but gently, like glass finally allowed to break. The gold light faded into white, and the room began to dissolve. Jace pulled Varela close, and for the first time in 1,000 years, they stood together with nothing between them, not memory, not time, not fear. "I choose now," he whispered, and the light swallowed them both. When he opened his eyes, he was standing outside under a sky filled with blue stars. There was no house behind him, no door, no tunnel, just a quiet hill and the soft sound of wind through glowing grass. Varela stood beside him, smiling, her hand still in his. "We're free," she said. He nodded slowly, breathing deeply. For the first time, there were no whispers, no loops, no pain, just peace. He didn't know what came next, a new life, maybe a real one. But he knew he would live it fully, with all his memories, with all his choices. With her, and somewhere far away, a door closed for the last time, not in sadness, but in victory.